Hey team, and welcome back to another video. Recently we shared mine and Aiden's top tips for beginners. Those who are new to climbing probably found loads of useful stuff in there. I also want to share some of my less obvious tips, things that I've learned over my last 2 decades or so of climbing, which I think can be really, really helpful. So let's get into it. Tip number 1, and I cannot stress enough just how helpful this tip is because it changed my climbing completely a few years ago. Practice things while you're warming up on easy climbs. It's so easy, and all of us, myself included, fall into the trap of just mindlessly pulling on jugs while we're warming up our hands and arms. It's not just that you're not learning and improving as a climber and missing a really good opportunity to practice stuff. It's also, well, at least it was in my case, you're probably ingraining bad habits into your climbing. When we climb without thinking about what we're doing, we probably pull a bit harder than we need to. We're not as precise with our feet as we could be. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't make a difference on the easier climbs, but on the harder climbs, pulling a bit harder than we should and not being precise with our feet makes a massive difference. So start practicing things like precision and being aware of how hard you're pulling, and maybe practicing techniques that you're not as familiar with on your warm-up climbs, and I guarantee it will make so much difference when you then get onto those harder climbs, not having to think as much about performing all of those techniques. Tip number 2. Now, this might sound like quite a strange one, but it's actually really, really helpful for improving the amount of creativity you use when you're climbing. When we start climbing, we often think of ourselves as having arms for pulling on things and legs for pushing on things, and that is generally the way we use them when we climb. But I think it can be really helpful to instead think of yourself as having just 4 interchangeable limbs. You can push and pull with your arms, you can push and pull on things with your legs. It sounds like a weird tip, but it makes heel hooking and toe hooking seem so much more natural. Tip number 3, again, thinking about the way we use our bodies when we climb. Mostly, we only interact with the wall using our fingertips and our toes, but I would advise being a little bit more free with how we use our bodies. It's a full contact sport. I use my knees, I use my elbows, sometimes I sit down on holds. Once I've clamped a hold against my head when I feel like I need to. Don't be afraid to get creative with it, and don't be too proud using knees and elbows. I think it is, maybe I'm the only one who thinks this, but I think it's good technique. I think it's absolutely fine. I would much rather top out a hard climb on my knees and elbows than fall off it because I was too proud to use my knees and elbows. So I think you should use them. They're also, the more you practice it, I've found really, really helpful for getting out of delicate balanced positions without losing balance too quickly. So practice using knees and elbows. It is definitely helpful. Tip number 4, and I think we all know this one, but it's really hard to stick to it sometimes. Practice the things you don't like doing more than the things you do enjoy doing. The things you enjoy doing are probably things you're already quite good at, whereas the things you don't enjoy are the things that are challenging you and teaching you a lot more. So for example, when I go around trying a new set, there are a few climbs that I might get quite quickly, and then if there's one climb which I really struggled on because it's not really my style, maybe I did it but it felt horrible, or maybe I didn't really manage it at all, that's the one that I then spend ages on because I know I'll learn so much more and improve more as a climber by putting more time into that than just smashing about on the climbs that I'm already comfortable on. Tip number 5. Now, this is a particularly helpful one when you're working on a hard project at or near your physical limit. In order to climb it, all you need to do is perform each move reasonably well. Now, that takes a lot of focus, but when we're working on a project, there are a lot of things that might start distracting us from just focusing on doing each individual move well. Things like getting overexcited about finishing the climb, because that would be really, really exciting, and then we start maybe climbing a little bit too quickly and aggressively. Or maybe we're worried we're not going to do the climb and we start losing confidence and we're thinking about how sad we'll be driving home not having done the climb that we want to do. Now, all of those little things might just start distracting you from that tip, which is be present and just focus on doing each individual move as perfectly as you can. Nothing else matters. So there you go, team. Those are my 5 slightly less obvious tips that I've picked up over my years climbing. I hope you like them. Comment below and let me know what you think, and keep an eye out for the next video. I'll see you all soon.